now move into the question and answering portion of the hearing, and I'll begin the questioning, recognize myself for 5 minutes. Mr. Norasta, wasn't that policy the one that was crafted back in the 1960s by Ted Kennedy? Isn't that the one you're referring to that needs to be changed? I agree with you that it needs to be changed, but isn't that the policy?
The last major update was in 1990. There was a major reform in 65, which is, I believe, the one you're referring to.
That's the one I'm referring to. That set the bones of what we have now. Mr. Rector, let me ask you a couple questions. In regard to legal immigration, if we just had legal immigration, we expanded that a little bit, we'd still have a southern border, would we? A problem, would we not?
We absolutely would. As I indicated, polls show 1 billion people would like to come and live here, okay? And Cato basically is an open border institution. They've never answered what happens when the 1 billion people want to come here under open borders. And yes, you would continue to have this exact same problem.
And didn't this problem
have very high levels of legal?
And didn't this problem exist during the Reagan administration? And they tried to make a deal, and the part of the deal was they'd build a wall, and they got the immigration, but they didn't get the wall. Isn't that?
They were supposed to get all kinds of security things, in particular. E-Verify, which we've never had, was the key. But Ed Meese told me that that was the worst decision the Reagan administration ever made, to make a deal of say, oh, we're going to give you amnesty and we're going to get all these security things, and they got nothing. We're still waiting for E-Verify since 1996.
And Mr. Blair, you talked a little bit in your testimony about the wall. While it wouldn't solve all the problems, wouldn't the wall be extremely helpful along the southern border to help reduce the number of illegal immigrants who are coming into this country?
Yes, sir.
And do you agree with Mr. Rector that what we have instead of the catch and release, we really have greet and release?
Yes, sir.
All right. Ms. Vernikoff, related to the school children, because I have school, I know I don't look like I could, but I do. I have some school-age children still. Was there any input from the parents of the students from the school where New York placed the illegal immigrants in to house them before, saying you're going to go to virtual learning?
Yeah, there was a lot of outrage from the parents of the school. There are 4,000 students that go to James Madison. We warned about what's going to happen in Floyd Bennett if they were to keep migrants at Floyd Bennett Center. There was going to be inclement weather, and they would have to move the children. It was a last-minute decision to move them into the school. We had to dismiss kids early. They had to go remote the next day. They canceled sports practice, and it's just not a good practice to have our schools become migrant shelters, even if it's for one night. The parents had no other choice, no other options as to what to do with their children the next day.
And so it disrupted not only the sports practice, but it also disrupted the athletic adventures? So the swimming team didn't get to go swim, getting to do their meets?
I don't know about the specific sports,
right.
but definitely practice was canceled.
And where that becomes significant is if some of those kids are trying to get a scholarship. Isn't that true?
Absolutely.
And then you were an immigration lawyer. Isn't it true that with this flood of illegal immigrants coming in, that we're actually putting those who are trying to do it legally at the back of the line instead of processing them in a timely fashion?
We're absolutely prioritizing illegal immigration over law-abiding citizens. We had to wait, my family and I had to wait 3 years just to see our grandparents. We did everything by the law. We followed the legal system, and that's how it should be done in the United States of America.
I appreciate that. Mr. Blair, I've been particularly interested in unaccompanied minors. Can you explain to the American people what happens and what your experience was at the U.S. border when an unaccompanied minor crosses the border and how Border Patrol hands the child off to HHS or the Office of Refugee Resettlement?
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, it's an everyday occurrence, and it happens all the time, all across the border. Typically, the child automatically has either an address of where they're going to, a name, and that name may be associated with them as a familial, as someone from their family, but it could also be someone that's also a trafficker or someone else. We really don't know. So at that time period, we have to take the knowledge that child has, that limited knowledge, process them, and then hand them off.
And are you aware that when OR gets them, they don't do an actual background check with fingerprints on the sponsors? They don't do a home check. They've now made it optional that you can do a virtual check, but that there's no requirement that they check or that they notify the local school division or the local Department of Social Services that this child is being placed in their area. Are you aware of that?
Correct. Just not on first-hand accounts, just on other accounts. Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, it's been widely reported. My time is up. I could go on for hours on these issues. They're extremely important to America long-term, and I appreciate you all being here today, and I yield back and now